Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today at Wikimania. My name is Kira Wisniewski. My pronouns are she and her. I have the distinct honor and privilege of being Executive Director of Art and Feminism. I'm currently coming to you from the isolation of my bedroom because I got COVID this week. So hopefully we can make it through this presentation together though. I do want to share that photos and sharing on social media are okay. The presentation is linked in the Etherpad if you're interested in following along that way, or if that's easier for you for accessibility reasons. And we'll get right into it. Let me go ahead and share a screen. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. Really excited to be here with you today. Okay, advanced slide, let's go. So this is me. As I said, my pronouns are she, her. I have the honor and privilege of being executive director here at Art and Feminism. We like to kick off all of our sessions with our Brave Friendly Space Agreement. So the goal of this session is to create an encouraging space for collective learning that requires intentional behavior wherein participants are conscious of and accountable for the effects of their statements and actions on others. We respect our experiences and the experience of others and recognize that we can't do this work without one another. We agree to hold each other accountable to foster a brave, friendly space. As you all probably know so far from your experience on Wikimania feed loop, there's a 1 to 2 minute delay from like what I'm saying to when you're hearing it. So please feel free to pepper questions throughout this short presentation, and then hopefully we'll get to those at the end, and there won't be too much awkward space in between. I'm really excited today to talk to you about the work that we've been doing here at Art and Feminism that's really about centering equity and race. And so as part of our formal strategic planning, we worked with a consultant group that uses social justice and an equity lens with their work. And we reworked our mission, vision, and values in 2020. Started that process in 2020 and then concluded it in 2021, and have just really been feeding a lot of the work we've been doing now. And so here is our mission and vision. And although art and feminism originated with a focus on gender and equity, all other means of identity oppression, especially racism, are interconnected and cannot be tackled as distinct problems. We see equity as a responsibility to ourselves and our community, and are specifically beginning with addressing racial and ethnic equity to reflect that in our values. So let's talk about our values. We believe in the power of the arts. We believe that art is fundamental to flourishing open societies. We are a community of many feminisms. We believe in their collective power to challenge oppressive structures and create new liberating ones. We create safer and braver spaces that are caring, equitable, pro-Black, queer and trans affirming, intentional and accessible, and all around anti-oppressive. We find joy in our community, knowing it will sustain us in our work. And lastly, we commit to knowledge sharing and creation on a global scale, highlighting voices and stories which are often unheard. We also embrace our own learning and unlearning of knowledge so that we may dream of new ways of being and doing individually and collectively. So you may notice that the words underrepresented and marginalized don't appear in this mission, vision, or values, and this is intentional. Although not perfect, we learning. So from August to December of 2021, the Art and Feminism leadership team, composed of lead co-organizers and staff, took an organizational pause on all programmatic activities to prioritize the work of improving and creating internal anti-oppression policies and mechanisms. This, in a way, became our programming. The leadership team became deeply engaged in this work by meeting, reading, working through past trauma, examining how white supremacy and Anglo-Saxon practices perpetuate in our everyday work culture. So things like sense of urgency, um, catering to the white gaze, centering or overrepresenting the US culture. And we were working through these to create operational definitions and concepts like equity and racism. This important work takes intention, it takes time, and it's an ongoing process, and by no means is done. We specifically focused on developing an anti-racism policy to be implemented across the organization and to form our new cultural practices. Our goal is to move art and feminism toward a cultural shift with established policies and protocols that will help the organization be more consistent with our values. We also envision creating regular org-wide trainings to help us keep in alignment with this work. Both of these policies and statements are available on our website and on Meta. They're also in the Etherpad, and we hope that you are as excited as we are as we continue through this trajectory. So initially, when I put this presentation together, I thought we could have this interactive moment of like, how do you define equity or how do you define racism? But of course, with the 2-minute delay, that would be a little bit more challenging. But these are questions that I invite you to think about, because we really believe at Art and Feminism that this shouldn't just be the work of groups that are working at the margins. This should be the work of everyone, and would really love for you to reflect on the last time your affiliate or user group had the time to specifically discuss race or equity, and how is that really showing up in the work that you're doing in the Wikiverse. So as I said, we really took the time to define collectively what these words meant to us as an organization. And so our definition of racism is that we recognize and define racism as micro and macro acts of harm, power, and violence against Black, Indigenous, and other non-white people across the globe. As a colonial system centered in maintaining and protecting whiteness, racism permeates our societies through antagonism, exclusion, and disenfranchisement, acts and processes that reduce the quality of life and produce premature death. Anti-Black racism is a racism directed towards Black people, people of African descent, and people with darker skin, and also distribution of resources is done so in a way that makes survival within our current social and economic systems more possible for historically oppressed groups of people. Practicing equity means focusing on the experiences, needs, and narratives of these groups. So how does this all play into our work? So far in 2022, this is like a snapshot of the art and feminism work that we've done in our global campaign. And these numbers are compiled by the wonderful dashboard created and maintained by Wiki EDU. And we realize though that this doesn't capture all the participants in art and feminism events. For instance, this doesn't account for anybody who tunes into a panel or would be participating in something that isn't a traditional editathon. And whereas events traditionally do happen around International Women's Day, organizers are now celebrating events year round. And so going a little bit about how redistributing those resources and how we are living and centering our equity, these are some ways that we support our organizers worldwide. So we work in interpretation and translation. As you saw from the last slide, we don't have our materials in 27 languages yet, but our website is available in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. We're also working on Arabic right now. We offer microfunding up to $250, mostly around accessibility towards our event organizers. And then we also create spaces like community hours for peer learning and community support hours. They're lightly facilitated spaces for connection. And as the pandemic, continues, I have COVID right now, we put together a community care statement and we reissued it each year to really kind of highlight things to really put care first. So what is safest for the most vulnerable people who might want to attend events? What is safest for the staff at venues that you've hosted your events? And what is the safest for your community at large? We always want to highlight the accessibility needs, especially when you're thinking about virtual platforms as well. And I quickly just want to mention a couple other initiatives that we have. Earlier this year, we announced new pieces on Wikimedia Commons as part of our Call to Action Art Commission program. And we have these 3 new wonderful pieces that are available on the Commons. We celebrated the Global South, exclusively inviting applicants from artists located in the regions where our curators call home. So African countries, Brazil, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Each of these commissions came with a $2,000 artist fee. And then lastly, I wanted to mention some research that we did called Unreliable Guidelines, where we looked at reliable source guidelines on how they affect communities in French, English, and Spanish Wikipedia. The project used an intersectional feminist methodology to address how Wikipedia trainers involved in the art and feminism movement. And it ends with recommendations for more inclusive and diverse Wikipedias. So I know that was a lot. Hopefully, you learned something, or maybe you're thinking about how you can bring some equity discussions to your corner of the Wikiverse. I invite you to, of course, connect with us. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary next year, and if this work, if our values, if our mission resonates with you, please consider this an invitation to join us. We'd love to help you. So much. This is another former Call to Action Art Commission that's available on Wikimedia Commons. And I'll end with some of the image credits from my slide deck. And now I'm going to see if we have any questions that have popped up. Thank you again so much for joining today. I know there's a little bit of a delay. Going to the questions now. I see that the font size of the chat, I agree, it's very small. And if there are no other questions, thank you again for joining today. I hope that you have a great rest of your yes, I hope that you have a great rest of your Wikimania. So happy to be celebrating with you. Look forward to celebrating 10 years of art and feminism with you next year. So thank you so much, and I'll see you around.